Ever catch yourself daydreaming about, having just a little bit more, like maybe a slightly bigger garage? Or one of those fancy kitchen gadgets everyone's always raving
Oh,
about?
totally. Or even just like a little more breathing room in the bank account. It's a universal urge, right?
Absolutely. And it's interesting because today we're diving into some ancient wisdom that speaks directly to that very human desire. We're looking at, let me see, yeah, excerpts from the Gospel of Luke, chapters 36 and 77, to be precise. And what we find there is this fascinating exploration of wealth, greed, and that ever-present shadow of worry that seems to follow.
And what's really cool is how Luke sets this whole thing up. It's not like some abstract theological lecture or anything. He kind of just drops us right into this scene that feels like it's ripped straight from a reality TV show.
Yeah.
You've got this family, right? And they're completely at odds, squabbling over an inheritance.
Oh, man, I can already see it now.
Right. And then you've got this guy approaching Jesus, absolutely desperate for him to like step in and settle the score, make sure he gets what he thinks is his fair share. The drama is so real.
Oh, we've all seen those inheritance battles play out. Sometimes it gets messy, but that's where things take a really interesting turn. Because Jesus, he doesn't take the bait. He kind of sidesteps that whole legal drama, and instead he uses this really common everyday dispute to launch into something much, much deeper.
It's brilliant, actually. He uses a scenario everyone understands to talk about something that really matters.
Exactly. He starts talking to the crowd and to us, by extension, about this trap of greed. And Luke summarizes it so perfectly, he says. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions.
It's such a simple statement, but man, it cuts right to the heart of so many of our modern anxieties, don't you think?
It really does. It's like everywhere we turn, there's this message that we need more stuff, more money, more status.
It's relentless. But Jesus, he challenges that entire framework right from the get-go.
He really does. And then he kind of doubles down on this idea with a parable, the story of the rich fool. And here's the thing. This isn't just some dusty old tale. This is a scenario that many of us have probably entertained, at least for a fleeting moment. Just picture it. You're a farmer, you've had this amazing harvest, way more grain than you could have ever imagined. Your storehouses are overflowing. What's the first thought that pops into your head?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're thinking practically, you need more storage space, right?
Exactly. And that's precisely what this farmer decides. He's like, time to build bigger barns. He's got it all planned out. Retire early, eat, drink, enjoy life. The classic retirement fantasy.
Hmm?
But, and here's where Luke really gets you.
Wait, there's a but. This is where it gets good.
Oh, there's always a but. So just as this guy is patting himself on the back, God steps in with a bit of a reality check. And let me tell you, he does not mince words. He looks at this man, so focused on his earthly riches, and basically says, "You're a fool."
Whoa, okay, that's pretty direct.
Right. And why is he called a fool? Because that very night, his life is demanded of him. All that careful planning, all that wealth he accumulated, it means absolutely nothing in the face of eternity.
It's kind of like that saying, you can't take it with you.
Yeah.
But this drives the point home in such a powerful way. It's a good reminder that this isn't just about money, it's about our priorities.
It really is. And it's like Luke knew we needed to hear that because he doesn't let us off the hook. He goes on to record Jesus asking this incredibly poignant question, then who will get what you have prepared for yourself?
Man, talk about a conversation starter. That's really going to make you think twice. It's wild, right? Like that question just echoes through the centuries. It really makes you confront things, like our own mortality. And what's actually important in the grand scheme of things? What are we really chasing after?
It's heavy stuff. And it's almost like Jesus knew exactly what we'd be thinking. Because from there, he shifts gears, goes straight to a topic that, well, often kind of goes hand in hand with discussions about wealth, worry. He transitions from barns overflowing with grain to something I think a lot of us can relate to, those everyday anxieties.
Yeah, like what?
Food, clothing, keeping up with, you know how it is. Sounds pretty familiar, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Big time. It's like he's speaking directly to us, even though we lived thousands of years ago.
Right. It's timeless, this stuff. And it's really striking because Jesus, he doesn't just brush these worries aside like they're insignificant. He acknowledges them, validates them, he gets it. But then he does something really interesting. He offers a radical alternative, a complete reframing of how we approach things, provision, security, that whole deal.
Okay, so what does that look like? How do we reframe things like Jesus is talking about?
Well, he does it, and get this, he does it with this really unexpected image, Ravens.
Ravens, like the
Yeah,
birds.
ravens. He's talking about these creatures that, well, they don't exactly farm or anything. They don't stockpile supplies for a rainy day. They definitely don't stress about where tomorrow's meal is coming from. Yet, God provides for them. So, I mean, what's the takeaway there? What do you think?
Well, when you put it like that, it really makes you think. I feel like it challenges that very human instinct we all have to equate our worth, our value, with how productive we are. Like our ability to hustle, to accumulate more and more and more. And those ravens, they completely turn that whole idea on its head.
They really do. It's such a powerful image.
It's like they're this living, breathing reminder. We aren't defined by what we achieve or what we own, our value. It's tied to something much deeper. The simple fact that we are loved by, well, by a God who cares for even the smallest, most overlooked creatures.
It's a pretty profound thought when you really let it sink in, right? And just when you thought it couldn't get any deeper, he takes it a step further because he doesn't just tell us to stop worrying. He actually offers a tangible alternative. He says, seek first his kingdom. But, and this is what I'm curious about, what does that actually look like in our world, in our everyday routines? I mean, does that mean we all need to, quit our jobs, move to a monastery and devote our lives to prayer?
Well, I don't think it has to be that literal. You don't have to become a monk to seek first his kingdom, although, hey, more power to you if that's your calling.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's less about a change in physical location and more about a shift in our internal compass, our priorities.
So how we view things, not necessarily where we go.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our ultimate security, our true wealth, you could say, isn't found in material possessions, right? It's about aligning ourselves with something much, much bigger than ourselves, something eternal.
Okay, so we're talking about a total paradigm shift here.
Right.
But it's not about ignoring our responsibilities in the real world.
Right.
It's more about choosing to see them through a different lens.
Yeah, I like that. It's like choosing to view things differently, like actively making that choice.
Exactly. And maybe asking ourselves, in every situation, okay, how can I live a life marked by generosity, a life that reflects that abundance I've already been given, even if it doesn't always feel like it. But then that begs the question, how do we do that practically? Where do we even begin?
Oh man, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think the answer was going to look different for everyone. It's about tuning into those inner promptings, those little nudges we get,
Yeah.
the ones that tell us to maybe give a little more of our time, our talents, our resources, whatever we have.
So being more aware of those moments, those opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe it's like volunteering at a local charity or mentoring a young person or even something as simple as being more intentional about, supporting businesses that align with your values.
So not necessarily some grand sweeping gesture that changes the world overnight.
No, not at all. It can be those small, seemingly insignificant acts of kindness,
Yeah.
of generosity, because those are the things that over time, I really believe they ripple outward and they contribute to creating a more just, more compassionate world.
I love that. It's about those little ripples of generosity and kindness.
Exactly. And you know what I find really fascinating? When we actually start to live this way,
Mhm.
when we make a conscious effort to prioritize giving over getting, something within us shifts. I don't know how else to explain it. That constant pressure, the one that tells us we need to achieve more, accumulate more, it starts to lose its grip a little bit.
It's like we finally exhale.
Yes, exactly. It's like we're tapping into a different kind of abundance altogether,
Yeah.
one that isn't dependent on our bank account balance or how many possessions we've managed to accumulate.
So true. It's like generosity itself becomes its own form of wealth, a currency that goes way beyond anything the material world can offer.
100%. And, it's interesting how this all circles back to that initial scene that we were talking about, the one with the inheritance dispute. Because Jesus, he wasn't saying material needs are unimportant.
Yeah.
Not at all. It's more like he was inviting us to consider, well, maybe a more expansive view of wealth, one that encompasses, everything, our relationships, our community, that spiritual connection that underpins it all.
It's amazing, isn't it? We start with this simple story, right? A farmer, some barns, a bumper crop, and suddenly we're wrestling with these massive questions about life and death and what it actually means to be truly wealthy.
It's what these ancient texts do so well, cut through all the noise, all the distractions of our modern world, and speak to something, well, something that's fundamentally human. I mean, let's face it, whether it's today or thousands of years ago, people haven't really changed that much, have we? We still crave that sense of security. We still get caught up comparing ourselves to everyone else. We still worry about well, about having enough.
We really do. It's almost comforting in a way. This reminder that we're all in this together, facing
Yeah.
these same basic human struggles. But what I really appreciate about how Jesus approaches all of this is that he doesn't just like offer these vague platitudes or anything.
Why, it's not just don't worry, be happy, and call it a day.
Exactly. He goes deeper, he digs into the why behind it all, and then he offers this completely different framework for even understanding what wealth and security actually are. One that's rooted in something much more, well, more enduring than just material possessions.
It's about making that shift, moving from a scarcity mindset to one of abundance.
Mhm.
Recognizing that true wealth, real wealth, it's not about what we can hoard or hold on to for dear life. It's about what we're willing to share.
It's a pretty radical concept when you really think about it, to view generosity as its own form of wealth.
It really is. And honestly, it's a challenge for all of us, right? To really examine our lives, see where we might be clinging a little too tightly to things that, in the grand scheme of things, don't really matter.
So maybe, and this is just a thought, maybe the key takeaway here isn't about beating ourselves up for what we have or haven't accumulated, but about asking ourselves a different question. How can we, each of us, become conduits of that abundance we've already been given in big ways and small ways? How can we use our time, our talents, even our resources, to actually make a difference in our own little corner of the world?
And you know what? I think that's what it means to be, as they say, rich toward God.
Yeah.
It's not about, like, achieving some kind of, I don't know, some arbitrary standard of piety or something.
Right. It's not about checking boxes.
Exactly. It's about something much deeper, aligning our lives, our choices, everything, with a different set of values altogether. Values that, well, they prioritize generosity and compassion and connection over just, constant accumulation and competition.
It's a beautiful vision, isn't it? And one that I think we could all stand to be reminded of from time to time. So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive here, I'm left thinking about this. What's one small act of generosity, it really could be anything, that we can offer today? And I mean anything. Maybe it's a kind word to a stranger. Maybe it's a donation to a cause that speaks to your heart. Or maybe, just maybe, it's allowing ourselves to just be present in this moment, to feel gratitude for all the good that already surrounds us, even amidst the chaos. The invitation is there, for all of us. It's not about how much money we have in the bank, but about opening ourselves up to the true riches that come from living a life of, well, a life of purpose, a life of generosity.